Diversity and inclusion. I'm here as PCD, but I'm definitely only the mouthpiece, speaking on behalf of my colleagues on the MDC and everyone in PDO. Because diversity and inclusion is definitely not an HR topic. It actually represents our core values in PDO. Maybe before we start, in a way of framing the topic, let's start by what is diversity, inclusion, and why bother? So diversity is very simply all the ways in which we are different. And when we talk about diversity, the first thought in most people's minds is about gender, the male-female. Nationalities also has to come to mind, race, language, ethnicity. But we ought to think of diversity in all the ways that we're different, including different personalities, including different generational aspects. We have the old and the young who think very differently. We have the able-disabled. So diversity actually is a very wide umbrella of differences. Now inclusion is when you make that difference a strength for your company and all aspects of your life. So inclusion is about valuing that diversity and making sure that everyone, wherever you are, and in this context in PDO, feel comfortable to perform at their best. It's about ensuring that that difference in opinion is not what we're arguing about, but it's actually input towards creativity and innovation. So, diversity and inclusion in PDO. Where are we today? We are privileged in having partnership with multinational companies. So from inception, we had to deal with the difference in language and nationalities. That was one of the first things we had to deal with. But in its formal sense, PDO has been taking diversity and inclusion in its formal agenda from as back as the 1990s. So we're talking about close to 30 years of focus. We have a lot to celebrate. If you look at today, and the Sheikh actually was asking, he said, I note that there's a lot of nationalities in the company. Today we've got close to 70 nationalities, far more languages than the 70. We've got different races, different religions. We certainly have, under our responsibility, we look after 4, 5-year-olds in the PDO school. We have co-located and coexisting the multi-generational, we employ scholars and at the age of 18, and they're actually formally on our books. And they're sitting next to the pillars of the company who built the company of above 60s. The way of thinking is actually different. And each one of those, from the 4 to 5-year-olds all the way to the 67-year-olds, they all bring something to the way of thinking. Over the years, and in line very much with His Majesty's vision about empowering society, by empowering women, there was a very specific focus on gender balance. Today we are close to 12% of the company is females across all different levels of seniority. 12% may sound very small, however it is very much in line with the industry average. We are not very happy with being close to an industry average. And the focus that we've been bringing about in the last couple of years, we're seeing the fruits of it. In the last 3 or 4 years, you're seeing certainly the coastal-based jobs. Petroleum engineers, for instance, intake, it's almost 50-50. Because we've asked ourselves, what is the barrier? And we've analyzed what needs to be done to actually attract and make PDO a more female-friendly environment. And we're seeing the results of that. Today we have, and we're blessed to have, 4 female directors on the Managing Directors Committee. I think if you ask each and every one of us, we do not see ourselves as females on the Managing Directors Committee. We see ourselves as members of the Managing Directors Committee. We're afforded the same development opportunities, the same say, and the same respect. We have been acknowledged for a lot on the D&I front. we have introduced, and it's pretty much a pioneering program in this region, of training operators, female operators in the field. Every single aspect of that program was very, very carefully planned for. From who mentors them, from the medical evacuation, who sees their work on day-to-day basis, every single aspect, who looks after them. It started turbulently, and it ended with major success. We have graduated the first and the second, and we're now, it's part of the way we do business. It's definitely one feather in our cap. Recently, we were recognized as one of the 4 main winners or best practices in the region by the Pearl Initiative, a UN offshoot that actually looks at companies and how they empower women. And so PDO was one of the 4 winners of those. And we can cite more and more of those. So there's much to celebrate as we push our boundaries. But our simple view is if you can hack it, we're not going to look at your color, your nationality, or your gender. So, where are we going with DNI? As I stated, we've been at it for several decades. We've re-energized our focus in the last 3 to 4 years. As everything in organizations, sometimes you lose focus and you refocus. So we take DNI very, very seriously. What we have now done, we've realized that to continue the journey, we've got to treat diversity and inclusion just as we treat safety, just as we treat well and reservoir management. So we've looked at the governance and we've looked at the supporting structure. So in terms of governance, we now have established an MDC, a Managing Directors Committee, subcommittee. 7 directors are actually members of that committee. It is chaired by our Managing Director, Raul Rastucci. We meet very, very frequently. I stand here representing my colleagues as the facilitator of this process, but I'm certainly not necessarily the champion. We have done many sensing exercises. We have trained and retrained ourselves. We have 4 of the 7 directors on that committee who are business champions, who are driving the DNI agenda in PDO. So we have the All North director championing harassment or the eradication of harassment and bullying. We have the exploration director, Intisar al-Hindi, who is championing on behalf of the committee, the gender balance. We also have the All South director, who's championing for us the fairness and equity focus area. We also have Abdelamir, who's our EVD, External Affairs Director, who's actually championing communication across the board and helping the education community. We have, and we very uniquely have, now established a diversity and inclusion officer. That's Kahlan. She's sitting in the second row. She's the program manager, but simply she's also the go-to person if you're sitting anywhere in PDO and you don't know where to go. She will direct you to where to go. We have business champions, our colleagues who have been over the years very, very passionate about diversity and inclusion, and they have actually almost single-handedly been pushing the DNI agenda in PDO. Today, we're actually putting them as an official part of the support structure. We're equipping them with training and the tools to enable them to further affect their role. Last but not least, of course, is our HR business partners are now, under the leadership of Farid, are now being trained on how to deal with diversity and inclusion issues, on how to spot harassment and how to counsel on harassment and discrimination. So as you can see, it's a fairly elaborate structure, support structure, all intended to eradicate and further diversity and inclusion in PDO. Possibly to conclude, because I can literally and my colleagues can literally fill several days of our diversity and inclusion plans. Every single one of the champions has had numerous sensing exercises. Every single one of the streams has a very detailed action plan. It is tracked on the DNI MDC subcommittee as much as we track safety actions, as much as we track well and reservoir management actions. We are taking this very, very seriously. So, to conclude, DNI has been a priority and a business imperative for us. We continue to take stock and fill any gaps that we actually see. We're putting formal and informal structures to deal with diversity and inclusion issues. Let's keep in mind, people wake up in the morning, want to coming to work. They just want to do a good job and be nice to other people. So some of it is actually very unintended. So let's, from the receiving end, from the giving end, let's keep that in mind. That's why we talk about formal structures, but we also emphasize the informal structures, support structures. At the end, one has to conclude by actually saying that we, all of us collectively, are the first and last line of defense when it comes to diversity and inclusion. We've got to act with integrity and do to others what we'd like to be done to ourselves. We ought to, each one of us, act as an ambassador. When we spot diversity and inclusion issues, let's actually coach and counsel. And I start with coach and counsel because 60-70% of what we see is actually unintended. So start with coaching and counseling before judging. And when it's outright harassment, let's all have the courage and demonstrate the courage to actually intervene. Because it may be in your eyes a very small issue, and in the eyes of the receiver, a huge issue that does not only impact them here at work, but they take it home to their families and to the bigger society. So, I am very, very proud to be a member of PDO. You hear me say this all the time because I genuinely am. What we're doing on the DNI front is something that is yet another thing to be very proud of. I'm very proud to also welcome one of the jewels of the crown in this country to focus today very much on the religious aspect of religious tolerance. Thank you very much.
Now I'd like to welcome Doctor for just a way of introduction. Is this working? As a way of introduction, Dr. الشيخ Dr. كهلان من الخروصي was a doctor, a PhD holder. He's got a Bachelor of Science degree in Sharia and a Master's degree and PhD degree in Islamic Studies from Oxford University, I understand. He's been appointed in 2010 as the Assistant to the Grand Mufti of the Sultanate by a royal decree. And he is a well-known scholar, as mentioned earlier, regionally as well as in the country, of course, in Oman, with many studies, with many contributions around the Islamic studies in general, but around the tolerance more specifically. So for that, he's an author of many actually publications, Arabic and English, and I think many people are familiar with his talks and also on TV as well, when he's standing for the Grand Mufti, So without further ado, I'd like to welcome Sheikh Doctor to the stage, please, and then we'll have a question and answer session after the finish of the speech. Thank you, Sheikh.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. اللهم افتح لنا أبواب رحمتك وانشر علينا أثواب حكمتك. Okay. And I think the topic of differences and inclusion, by definition, can be summarized in the word that we already heard from Asma, thank you very much, the word tolerance. And if I am to disclose the reason why I accepted this invitation, then there are two reasons. But before saying these reasons, I have also to apologize because I wasn't able to do a say and display. Actually, I prepared these cards, and I was about to make a PowerPoint presentation this morning, but it was my turn to look after my 2-year daughter after the dawn prayer this morning, something that I do not regret. Any one of you who is familiar with Oxford and Cambridge, then he will recognize these cards. Until now, such cards are still usable in Oxford. They do prefer them, believe me. Even if you are searching for a title in the library, then the first thing you are going to do is to search these cards rather than going to the computers available there. And it is the best way to find your references or source that you want in such huge Bodleian library, which is the Library of Oxford. And with this as well, I can produce something out of nothing, believe me. It worked with me when I was doing my thesis. I said to my supervisor that I do have an issue, which is the manuscripts, the copies of the manuscripts that I was working on, editing and studying. I couldn't trace the authentic original copy of the manuscript. I do have 2 copies, and I couldn't trace which one is more authentic and earlier than the other. I did my best, but I come to the conclusion that, no conclusion, I don't know. He said, put this into writing. So the only thing that helped me was such cards. I described the process I went through to examine these manuscripts. It went on 1 page, 2 pages, 3 pages, 4 pages, and I concluded that I don't know in the conclusion which one is earlier and which one is more authentic, and because of that I'm going to rely on both copies. So I produced, according to my supervisor, something good, sound convincing out of nothing. Now I'm saying this because such a topic, although being well known, publicly talking, the topic of tolerance, yet if we examine it thoroughly and profoundly, we are going to conclude that it is more complicated than we expected. And this is the reason why I accept this invitation. Because first of all, it is not talking about a problem. Normally, I am invited to tackle a problem, an issue, a topic that requires answers, solutions, produce through the practice of ijtihad new rulings based upon the Quran and prophetic Sunnah. But this topic is not one of these kind or type of issues and topics. That's why I liked it. Yet on the other hand, I have to admit that the word tolerance, although commonly used, yet it is indeed problematic. I'm going to define, to do my best, not by any sense in an academic way, what is tolerance and how it is related to diversity and inclusion. But as I said, just to break the routine, I would like throughout this session to have interaction between me and you. And because of that, I'm going to raise the first question. And please, feel free to comment and to answer whenever I am asking or raising any questions, because this is going to, we are going to end up knowing that you are not asleep, inshallah ta'ala. The first question, what is tolerance? Can we just give, when I say tolerance, what sort of words or terms or phrases come to your minds? Please, go ahead. Living. Limits. Yes. Acceptance of others. Patience. Capability. Yes. Understanding, yes. Change behavior, yes. Accommodating others, yes. Respect. There is no wrong or right answers. How do you interpret, how do you understand the word tolerance? Tasamuh, yes. All answers are right, but I am surprised because none of you had said harmony. None of you has said peaceful coexistence. Do you agree that such phrases are very much close to the word tolerance? Yes. Now my argument is tolerance. When I said this phrase is problematic, I do mean it. Because by definition, tolerance, I may give an example. You are sitting together now, every one of you, male or female, a male or a female, sorry, not harming his or her neighbor, then you are tolerating each other. So you do not have a fight, then this means that you are peacefully coexist. Now, is this what we are talking when we say tolerance? Do we mean this level of accepting others, that we do not harm them? We do not say hello to them. We do not smile to them. We do not kick them if they are sitting in front of us. We do not spill the cup of coffee in their clothes if they are next to us. Then we are in a golden peace. But this one is a golden peaceful silence rather than engagement. This is when I said that the word tolerance is problematic. This is not the level that we are talking about, and it is not the goal that we would like to achieve. You know, in Islamic jurisprudence, if we are to give definitions to technical terms, then there are two steps. Let's bring what is included and let's take out what is excluded. Now, if I put the question, because all what you have said already is inclusive, but what about if we are to exclude phrases and terms or concepts that are not related to tolerance? I'll keep the term for the time being, and I'm going to change it in a few minutes' time. If we are to exclude some concepts from tolerance, what are these phrases? What are these concepts? Please. Hate, hatred, sorry? Discrimination, absolutely. Yes? Sorry?
Racism.
Yes, discrimination. Prejudice, probably. Separation. Conflict and clashes. Sorry? Discourse. Disrespect, okay. Hostility, enmity, hatred. And this is when they say, as I said, when in Islamic philosophy, Islamic jurisprudence, when they talk about a definition and they call it, they label it as jami' mani'. Jami', it means that it is inclusive. All the concepts attached to the main concept to be defined should be included. But what is not related has to be excluded by definition. And I think all the phrases, all the concepts that you already mentioned, they are excluded. And this is why I said the word tolerance is not sufficient to serve the purpose that we are for here. So what are the alternatives? Any suggestions? Okay, let me quote a verse from the Holy Quran, and upon this quotation, I want you to pick up the equivalent to tolerance from this verse. Allah the Almighty says, يا أيها الناس إنا خلقناكم من ذكر وأنثى وجعلناكم شعوبا وقبائل لتعارفوا إن أكرمكم عند الله أتقاكم. Any suggestion? لتعارفوا. Right. Let's move for our audience who do not understand Arabic to the translation, at least the literal translation of this verse. يا أيها الناس, O mankind, إنا خلقناكم من ذكر وأنثى, we have created you out of a male and a female. وجعلناكم شعوبا وقبائل لتعارفوا, and we have made you into nations and tribes so that you can know one another. Most translations of the meaning of the Quran, they do agree that, and this is when I said it is a literal translation of the word لتعارفوا, they all agree, they all give the translation as so that you can know one another. Now this phrase لتعارفوا, and then the ending of the verse, إن أكرمكم عند الله أتقاكم, indeed the best amongst you before Allah the Almighty is the one who is most righteous. Now does this phrase تعارف remind you of any other Quranic term? Just to think of the root of the word. The root of the word is عرفة, yes, to know. Some derivatives of this root used in the Holy Quran, خذ العفو وأمر بالعرف وأمر بالعرف. In another occasion, and this appears over and over in the Holy Quran, another word, we have so far تعارف, we have عرف, and the last one, which appears, as I said, very frequently in the Holy Quran, in different contexts, معروف. They are of the same root. I'm going to define this in a moment. Now, عرف and معروف, do they indicate that level of knowing each other only? Of course not. Now if you search translations of the Holy Quran for the word عرف and examine how different interpreters of the Holy Quran, Muslims or non-Muslims alike, have interpreted this word, you will end up having goodly manners, kindness, decency, and honorable manners. So the word عرف gives all these meanings: goodly manners, good behavior, the right way, kindness, decency, and honorable manners. And if we examine the word معروف in the different contexts found in the Holy Quran, then we are going to end up having the same meanings given to the word عرف: good, kindness, decency, goodly manners, honorable way, honorable manners. In some occasions, justice is also mentioned. Fairness is also mentioned. A fair manner is also mentioned. So the word تعارف, belonging to the same root of the word عرف and معروف, definitely gives all these definitions, all these meanings: good manners, good behavior, the right way, honorable way, justice, fairness, decency, and kindness. Now, is this similar to the word tolerance? Of course not. Which one serves the purpose that we are all looking for better? تسامح or تعارف. Absolutely right. تعارف serves the purpose better. Yet there is another word also used in some Islamic traditions, in the Quran and in the Sunnah, which is a very amazing term to be used. The word تسامح itself, let's analyze the word, because تسامح, this derivative, has never been used in our Islamic literature. There is another equivalent used, which is سماحة. بعثت بالحنيفية السمحاء. بعثت بالحنيفية السمحاء. رحم الله رجلا سمحا إذا باع سمحا إذا اقتضى سمحا إذا اشترى. Again, I'm going to define these into English in a moment. I'm just brainstorming and refreshing your memories of some of the traditions that you learned while you were at school. Where were we? Talking about what? Samaha. Again, we are going to follow the same process. If I am to ask, what is to be included in the word samaha according to your understanding? We are not talking academically here. I am not giving technical definitions, but believe me, once we absorb this, then my message is delivered. So, bashasha, kindness you mean. Bashasha, kindness, decency. Forgiveness. Now remember, بعثت بالحنيفية السمحاء. بعثت بالحنيفية السمحاء. Yes? Sorry? Easiness, absolutely. Forgiveness, probably. Tolerance, تغاضي. To bear others. Yes. Easy way. Middle of the road. No toughness. Modest. Tolerance. No extreme. No radical or non-radical, non-extreme, non-excessiveness. All these are to be included if we are to define the word samaha. If you refer to any Arabic dictionary for the word samaha, then you are going to conclude with these definitions, with these phrases. Of course, there are some variations between them, yet they are very close to each other. But the word samaha, and even if we refer to the prophetic traditions in which we can find this word samaha, then we are going to conclude having these meanings. As I said, the middle of the road, the middle way, easy way, modest way, non-radical way, non-extremist way, non-excessiveness. All these are to be included in samaha. So the word tasamuh is also derived from this, one of the derivatives of samaha, because it is originally from the root samaha. So is the word clear now? So either we are going to use ta'aruf or samaha or even tasamuh if we are to use some metaphoric meaning of the word, then here we can employ these phrases into what we are about to say. Right. Is there any question so far? What have we been talking about? Have we talked about principles? Not yet. All what I have been talking about is the definition. And which word, which technical term can serve the purpose of differences and inclusion better. And we end up claiming that the word ta'aruf and samaha, those two words, and I'm going to adhere to the word ta'aruf because Allah the Almighty in the Holy Quran has said that this is لِتَعَارَفُوا, so that you can, any suggestion? Rather than the common translation found in the translation of the meaning of the Holy Quran? Sheikh Sami? To understand, okay? Yes? Please, at the back there, yes. So that we can what? Exchange information of knowledge. لِتَعَارَفُوا. Now I already said it is from the same root. They belong to the same family. This word belong to the same family of عرف and معروف. And we already defined what is عرف and defined what is معروف. لِتَسَامَحُوا, okay. How about to acknowledge each other? How about to appreciate each other? Does it sound better? لِتَعَارَفُوا. Now to know each other is not something that Allah the Almighty is going to mention in the Holy Quran in a verse in which He is introducing us to the purpose of this diversity of life. We have created you out of a male and a female and created you into nations and tribes so that you can acknowledge each other. Acknowledge this diversity. Acknowledge these variations found on this life. So it is no longer a fact of life. It is now a Quranic fact. And whenever we have an informative sentence in the Quran, jumla khabariyya, now it carries within it commandments and advice and teachings. We have to realize this fact. Now I'll give an example. We all know Laylatul Qadr, the night of power. Yes? How this night is described in the Quran. Salamun hiya hatta matla' al-fajr. This is the description given to Laylatul Qadr, the night of power, in the Quran. Now is it just a piece of information and that's it, full stop? So yes, it is a night of peace. And that's it, full stop? Actually it is not. Although the sentence, the construction of the sentence is an informative sentence, jumla khabariyya, yet it carries a commandment. So make it a night of peace. It is a night of peace. You have to respond to this piece of information with an inner peace and outer peace. It's exactly the same when Allah the Almighty says, وَجَعَلْنَاكُمْ شُعُوبًا وَقَبَائِلَ لِتَعَارَفُوا. So you have to acknowledge each other. You have to appreciate this diversity. Now we can move to the second point. Are there any Quranic principles to serve the acknowledgement of one another? Of course there are. Please. Yes. Yes.
So we are not going to
Yes.
So why the word ta'aruf? You have more dealing with each other. So not any.
Do you know your neighbor? Do you have some neighbors whom you do not interact with? Yes. You know that they are living nearby in the same neighborhood and you can recognize them that they are your neighbors, but have you ever interacted with them? If we are to narrow down the meaning to what you are saying, I have, as I said, my own critical thinking on the word, on this translation, to know each other. It doesn't serve the word لِتَعَارَفُوا is far beyond in the meanings associated with than just knowing each other. So this is what I mean. I may give another example. You may know your boss and fulfill your duties, but you do not respect him. You do not acknowledge his authority, although you do obey that seniority. Right? Now, I'm not talking about PDO, I'm not talking about this, but I'm just assuming in another planet, in another world, in another company. Right? Okay. Where have we stopped? You are awake. I don't know about the audience online, but here Yes. The principles. Now, if this is a goal, a noble goal, clearly stated in the Holy Quran, in the same pattern in which Allah the Almighty is introducing us to the diversity of life, to be recognized and realized, as I said, not as a mere fact of life, but a Quranic religious fact, then has He set for us principles to serve this goal? And we said yes. Now in the same verse that I already quoted, Allah the Almighty has says, Ya ayyuha nasu inna khalaqnakum min dhakarin wa untha. Actually, this is the first essential principle to serve the goal. What is it? Inna khalaqnakum min dhakarin wa untha. Unity of origin. We all belong to the same family. We are all human beings. We are all mankind, and we are equal on this. So in the eye of Allah the Almighty, and that's why the beginning of this particular verse says, Ya ayyuhan nas, O people, O mankind. And it has been emphasized through presenting this fact, Inna khalaqnakum min dhakarin wa untha. So if you recognize that you all belong to the same family and created by Allah the Almighty, then you can move to the second principle, which is you are all equally dignified by Allah the Almighty. And you are dignified because you are human beings. And that's it. For this simple reason, this creation has been chosen by Allah the Almighty to be dignified. So this dignity is not granted by a higher authority, a worldly higher authority, I mean. It is not granted by a nation that is superior to others. It is granted by the divine, regardless of our races, ethnicities, colors, tongues and languages, our lands, our personalities. We are all human beings, and because of that, we are dignified by Allah the Almighty, and we are equal on this regard. Do you agree? Right. Now I'll give an example. Have you ever seen the Rolls-Royce company taking an owner of a car to court, claiming that they has taken such a step? Any suggestion? One of their cars was humiliated by an owner of the car. He owns the car. He paid thousands, hundreds of thousands for the car, yet they took him to court because they think that he has humiliated their car. Why is that? Please. Yes, they want to maintain their image. Second, they want to preserve their brand, their name. Right? Do they have the right? Yes, it is their brand. They manufacture that car. So they do have the right. Which means that even if you are the owner of the car, you have to respect the manufacturer. Right? Now Allah the Almighty is saying the same. You might differ with anyone else, but they are all the creation of Allah the Almighty. So you have to respect this creation, not because you are similar, but because you are different, but you are all created by Allah the Almighty. And that's why at the beginning of Surah An-Nisa, the first verse of Surah An-Nisa says what? Ya ayyuhan nasu inna khalaqnak ya ayyuhan nasu ittaqu rabbakum alladhi khalaqakum min nafsin wahida وخلق منها زوجها وبث منهما رجالا كثيرا ونساء واتقوا الله الذي تساءلون به والأرحام إن الله كان عليكم رقيبا. يا أيها الناس, O mankind. Again, here the speech is not addressed to the believers, to the righteous, to those who believe or adhere to faith. It is intended to be for those who are the children of Adam. يا أيها الناس اتقوا ربكم. Again, another reminder of the simple fact that you all belong to the same family, and because of that you have to respect each other, because you are all manufactured, you are all created by the Divine, the Almighty. How many principles so far have we mentioned? Perhaps you haven't realized. I already talked about the unity of origin and the dignity granted by Allah the Almighty for all human beings, and some of the consequences based upon these facts, these principles. Yet we do have also other principles, among which the concept of trusteeship. If you are not familiar with this, then the Arabic word for it is خلافة. خلافة. وإذ قال ربك للملائكة إني جاعل في الأرض خليفة. Now again, the English translation, which I found more convincing and I feel more comfortable with, is the word trusteeship. This goes in parallel to the other verse, إنا عرضنا الأمانة على السماوات والأرض والجبال فأبين أن يحملنها وأشفقن منها وحملها الإنسان إنه كان ظلوما جهولا. So I prefer, if you prefer custodianship, then that's okay. But is there any nation that has been granted this assignment over others, being trustees on this earth, rather than other nations, other ethnic minority? Of course not. All human beings have been entrusted with this custodianship. Now, what I want from this concept is that we are all in charge. We are all responsible for the construction of this life. And we cannot achieve this construction of life and combat corruption on earth if we are fighting each other. We are all responsible. Every one of us, every single individual is in charge. Again, this is something that is granted by Allah the Almighty. Now, being in charge means that you are already possessing a leadership post, without a title, of course, and no incentives here. There are responsibilities. Again, being in charge, as I said, means that there are special assignments given to human beings. These assignments can be summarized on the construction of life and avoidance of corruption. I am not saying my own opinions. I am quoting the Holy Quran when Allah the Almighty says, وَلَا تُفْسِدُوا فِي الْأَرْضِ بَعْدَ إِصْلَاحِهَا. Do not spread corruption on earth after it has been created in the right way. So we cannot achieve this goal, again, if we do not respect each other, listen attentively to each other, exchange our interests for the betterment of this life, planning together to achieve our goals, noble goals, and realizing the fact that we are all equal. Whether we are fulfilling these duties or not, this is something else, but we have to realize this fact. Right. I may now move to another principle, but bear this in mind because it is very important. We share the same destiny. We are all going to vanish. Is that right? Yes. Can anyone deny this fact? So now we do have sufficient principles that would lead us to achieve ta'aruf in its real sense, the real meaning that we already talked about when I defined the word ta'aruf. Now, and I'm talking about the essential principles. Of course, there are more detailed rules and principles found in the Holy Quran, but I set here the essential principles that are very clear, and people nowadays unfortunately tend to forget. They do not realize them. They do not realize what lies upon this realization of such principles, paramount principles found in the Holy Quran. But this is not my concern so far. I'm moving to card number 2, no, slide number 2. Good news. The question is, yes, we do know these principles, we do agree on them, and as far as inspiration, we do have an inspiration, but can we put these theories into actions? And if we can do so, how can we establish ta'aruf? Now I'm talking about know-how. Well, actually the question should be, do we have to? Am I right? Rather than asking, how can we establish ta'aruf? The question should be, do we have to? Right. Now I'm going to address my fellow Muslims. Allah the Almighty says, وَمَا أَرْسَلْنَاكَ إِلَّا رَحْمَةً لِلْعَالَمِينَ. So he hasn't said, we have sent you but as a mercy to the worlds. Al-Alamin, worlds, and it is very ironic. You know, in the Surah Al-Fatiha, Allah the Almighty says, Alhamdulillahi Rabbi Al-Alamin. What is ironic is that until now, we are still using the word world of something. The word of fashion, the word of science, the word of birds, the word of animals, the word of furniture, the word of perfumes and cosmetics. Aren't we using the same word used in the Holy Quran? Unintentionally, without realizing that this is exactly what is meant in the Holy Quran. Whenever we are talking about these circles, then we use the word. There are even magazines and books, websites, encyclopedias, and they use the same word, the word of so and so. And that's why, so it is not only mankind or human beings, but all the worlds. وَمَا أَرْسَلْنَاكَ إِلَّا رَحْمَةً لِلْعَالَمِينَ. Now this verse is talking about whom? So you are awake about Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam, that it is a mercy to the worlds. What about the Quran itself? إِنَّ هَذَا الْقُرْآنَ يَهْدِي لِلَّتِي هِيَ أَقْوَمُ. Allah the Almighty says that this book, this revealed book, is guiding people to what is the best way for them. In another occasion we find, إِنْ هُوَ إِلَّا ذِكْرٌ لِلْعَالَمِينَ. الْعَالَمِينَ again. إِنْ هُوَ إِلَّا ذِكْرٌ لِلْعَالَمِينَ. وَمَا هُوَ إِلَّا ذِكْرٌ لِلْعَالَمِينَ. It is a reminder, it is but a reminder to the worlds. So how can we prove these facts? Now again, they might sound informative verses, informative sentences in the Holy Quran, and we might quote them in any conference, a workshop, or any meeting, and claim to non-Muslims that our Prophet is, as expressed in the Holy Quran, is a mercy to the universe, is a mercy to the world. But do we need to inform them with these Quranic facts? We need to show them. We need to prove to them that He is a mercy to the universe. And we need to show them that the Quran is really caring for them, bringing solution to them, submitting and solving their concerns, and adding comfort to their hearts, opening further their vision to the facts of this life and the life to come. Isn't this the guidance contained in the Holy Quran? And we should pass this message to our fellow human beings. Are we doing so? Now this is the question. This answers the question, do we have to establish ta'aruf? We cannot achieve this goal without proving and translating these slogans and principles into actions, and no one to be blamed but ourselves. Now again, reflect on your relationships with your neighbors, with your workmates, with your relatives, with your friends, with those who studied with you. Have you established ta'aruf? Or all what you have established is introduction. And yes, you know each other from time to time, you send emails and full stop, that's it. If I may add another verse. Do you remember when at the beginning, which has been now for, no, I'm still within the time. When I said I received an invitation. Now any invitation that any one of you would receive definitely is going to be in a certain manner, in a certain style. It is an invitation at the end of the day. So no one is going to hold a gun over your head and said, hey, listen, I'm waiting for you in my house. Is this an invitation? Right. So the invitation means, by definition, a certain style, an etiquette, a manner, in words, in how to approach the one that you want to invite. Now, amazingly enough, the Quran doesn't choose any word except invitation. Ud'u ila sabili rabbika bil hikmati wal maw'izati al hasana. Ahsan. If he hasn't said bil hikmati wal maw'izati al hasana, already the word ud'u implies these meanings, because he says ud'u. So, are you inviting others if you said, hey, listen, Muhammad is a messenger of mercy. Okay, he is. Now this is not an invitation, definitely not. This is aggression, exclusion, no doubt about it. The word by itself, ud'u ila sabili rabbika bil hikmati wal maw'izati al hasana. So reflect on your relationships, your engagements with others, upon these maxims and principles. If you are to translate these principles into actions, then it is entirely onto your hands. Now, let alone if we are talking about, the broader picture, if we belong to the same company and we do not have mutual respect, we do not acknowledge the diversity that we have, we do not introduce our culture, our faith, our norms to others, and at the same time we don't accept to be introduced to their own identities and personalities and cultures, and we will end up, of course, either, just as I said, a golden silence at best, or confronting each other. Now again, I'm not saying my own opinion. You know that Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam was about to ban the marital intercourse if the woman is breastfeeding her baby. And then he said, I got to know that the Romans and Persians are doing it and it doesn't harm the baby. So he hasn't banned, thank God, having the marital intercourse between a married couple during the period of breastfeeding. Now what was his intention? The baby. Absolutely. The wellness, the health of the baby. And where did he get the information that it doesn't harm the baby? From Romans and Persians. If he hasn't done so, and of course he wouldn't have done so, but in theory we'll end up having what? A religious commandment. Yes. And you can imagine. What I'm saying here is that we are losing. If we are not establishing ta'aruf, we are losing. There is a stereotype, a distorted image, employed and presented by people with different agendas all around the world about Islam and Muslims. And at the same time, there are so many ignorant Muslims who do not know about others. So we are losing on both sides. We are not doing enough to introduce what we have, and at the same time we do not know anything about others, and we do not benefit from what they have. You know the word, and I like this expression, I'm concluding by the way. Embrace. There are two words of embrace. The equal embrace, I am talking about the original meaning of embrace, not to accept an idea, I'm talking about hugging a beloved one, having good emotions towards another one. This is the original word of embrace in English. So you can either embrace your brother, you are equal, you can hug him, but you can lift and raise your baby and embrace him. Islam can do so. Islam can lift others and embrace them and show them the mercy of Islam and how we do care for the betterment of humanity. Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam in one occasion stood up for a funeral. A funeral passed by and he stood up. His companions said to him, "Oh Prophet of Allah, this is a funeral of a Jew." They were surprised that he stood up for a funeral of a Jew. So they said to him, they thought that he didn't know. He said in reply to them, I'm waiting for him to change his camera while having a break. Where have we been? Yes. Do you know his reply? He said, أَلَيْسَتْ نَفْسًا. Isn't it a human soul? So because it is a human soul, he stood up for a funeral of a Jew. Now this is a real translation of what we have been talking when I talked about the paramount principle set in the Holy Quran to achieve ta'aruf. When I said the unity of origin, dignity from Allah the Almighty, being entrusted, being trustees on this life, which means that we are in charge, there are assignments to be fulfilled upon our shoulders, and we are heading towards the same destiny. Now this is a real translation from the biography of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. But if one insists on having practical steps on how to achieve this ta'aruf, then I have illustrated. I'm going just to give the titles. I'm not going to go into the details because they are well known, well defined. Not like the word tolerance, by the way. I'm not going to do the same. The first thing, the first maxim, or the first practical steps to be followed is justice. And I've heard in the opening speech the importance of fairness and justice. Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, in a very accessible narrative found in the Quran, he says, summarizing all his message, وَأُمِرْتُ لِأَعْدِلَ بَيْنَكُمْ. That's it. قُلْ أَمَرَ رَبِّي بِالْقِسْطِ وَأُمِرْتُ لِأَعْدِلَ بَيْنَكُمْ. I have been commanded to establish justice between you. This is the summary of his message. قُلْ أَمَرَ رَبِّي بِالْقِسْطِ. Say, my Lord, قُلْ أَمَرَ رَبِّي, has commanded justice. And full stop. So if we are treating our workmates, our neighbors, some of our friends, some of our relatives unjustly, and then claiming that we cannot achieve ta'aruf and tolerance, then we should blame no one but ourselves. We have to treat every single soul on this earth justly and in the best fairness that we can offer. Why I'm saying this? Because we find in the Holy Quran, you know, Allah the Almighty, one of the things that makes him very angry, really angry, is to ascribe and associate to him. Right? Yet, listen to this verse. وإن جاهداك على أن تشرك بي ما ليس لك به علم فلا تطعهما وصاحبهما في الدنيا معروفا. Does the word معروفا familiar? Right. Now who are those? One's own parents. What are they doing? Do they invite? Right. So the first practical step was what? Justice. The second one I already pointed to, glorifying Allah. If you are really going to glorify Allah the Almighty, then you are going to respect. You are going to show respect to human being, because this is the creation of Allah the Almighty. You are not only going to show respect to human beings, to your fellow mankind, but you are going to show respect to the environment around you. All elements on this life, because they are all creation of Allah the Almighty. This doesn't mean that you are not going to utilize them for your own interest or the interest of the world, but in a sensible way, in a responsible way. Third, kindness, particularly in speech. Allah the Almighty says, وَقُولُوا لِلنَّاسِ حُسْنًا. Say kind words to whom? To the believers, to the righteous. وَقُولُوا لِلنَّاسِ, to all people, kind words. And I think we need to recruit ourselves, discipline ourselves on this etiquette, because this is an open gate to the hearts. Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, one of the most difficult situations that he encountered is when he was asked to give compromise in what he is calling for. So some of his tribal uncles approached him and he said, hey, listen, what do you want? And this is the reason behind the revelation of Surah Al-Kafirun. قُلْ يَا أَيُّهَا الْكَافِرُونَ لَا أَعْبُدُ مَا تَعْبُدُونَ. They asked him to give compromise. That was one of the most difficult situations for Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam in terms of the influence that it left in his heart. Those are people whom he is calling for guidance, and yet they are asking him to worship their idols. Now, in that dialogue between them, do you know how has he addressed them? Every single one of them, he said to them, yes, uncle. Yes, uncle. Na'am ya am. Na'am ya am. Na'am ya am. We inherit the legacy of Ibrahim alayhi salam. How has Ibrahim alayhi salam approached his idol maker? His father was not only just a normal idol worshipper, he was the manufacturer of all the idols that were at their time. But you will find in the Holy Quran, in every sentence Ibrahim alayhi salam was addressing to his father, he says, Ya abati, Ya abati, Ya abati, right? Now that at the end of my father can be translated into English, oh my beloved father. Oh my beloved father. Now I think we lack this etiquette and technique. We have to return back to these maxims. But of course we cannot do so unless we initiate dialogues. We should have dialogues. We should have consultations and counseling. Allah the Almighty, from the time that He was about to create Adam alayhi salam, He informed the angels. وَإِذْ قَالَ, I already quoted the verse. وَإِذْ قَالَ رَبُّكَ لِلْمَلَائِكَةِ إِنِّي جَاعِلٌ فِي الْأَرْضِ خَلِيفَةً. He informed them, and then He accepting them having dialogue with Him. Ibrahim alayhi salam again, he questioned his father, he questioned his people, he questioned the king. إذ قال إبراهيم للذي ألم ترى إلى الذي حج إبراهيم في ربه قال أنا أحيي وأميت قال إبراهيم وإن الله يحيي ويميت قال أنا أحيي وأميت قال فإن الله يأتي بالشمس من المشرق فأتي بها من المغرب. He argued, he went into dialogue and conversation with the king, with an unjust, oppressing king. Yet he went into a dialogue with him, to the extent that he went into a dialogue with Allah the Almighty himself. قال رب أرني كيف تحيي الموتى. Show me how do you bring alive the diseased. قال أولم تؤمن. Haven't you believed? قال بلى ولكن ليطمئن قلبي. So we cannot establish ta'aruf if we are not initiating dialogues between each other. And this should be emphasized if we belong to the same environment, to the same workplace, to the same town, to the same city, to the same country. Finally, it is the engagement. We have to engage with others. Now, all what I have been talking about is not only, engagement is different than having a dialogue. One of the examples set in the Holy Quran is Dhul Qarnayn. Dhul Qarnayn is a title given to a king, a pious, righteous king, giving high authority from Allah the Almighty, giving wide knowledge with soldiers and armies and whatever one can imagine. Allah the Almighty says, وَآتَيْنَاهُ مِنْ كُلِّ شَيْءٍ سَبَبًا. We have given him, we have granted him an element of everything. Yet he has also enriched what he has been given of power and authority. فَأَتْبَعَ سَبَبًا. But when he was approached by a people, a group of people who are suffering from their enemies, they said to him, they approached him, saying, asking him to build a dam between them and their enemies. هل نجعل لك خرجا على أن تجعل بيننا وبينهم ردما. That was their request. His answer, he said to them, قال ما مكني فيه ربي خير. He's grateful to what he has been granted from Allah the Almighty. What I have been given from Allah the Almighty is so much, and I am grateful. I am thankful to Allah the Almighty. Now in this expression of gratitude, he is actually also informing them that he does have all the authority and qualities required to build the dam. Yet, the request that he made immediately after this expression, فَأَعِينُونِي بِقُوَّةٍ أَجْعَلْ بَيْنَكُمْ وَبَيْنَهُمْ رَدْمًا. Assist me with labor, with force power, so that we can build that dam between you and your enemies. Now he is not in need of assistance actually, but it is a way of engagement. Now do you imagine that a Prophet Yusuf alayhi salam, I'll give another example, when he was in the prison, that he has put a label saying that interpretation of dreams. So how those prisoners approached him and they said to him, إِنَّا نَرَاكَ مِنَ الْمُحْسِنِينَ. They were all prisoners and they are all suffering, yet they recognize that he is one of those who are doing good and righteous deeds. إِنَّا نَرَاكَ مِنَ الْمُحْسِنِينَ. We do not reflect on these very obvious, meaningful evidence found in the Holy Quran to serve our purpose. We need to reflect on them. And of course, there are so many evidence also from the prophetic traditions, but what I have already said from Prophet Ibrahim and from Prophet Yusuf alayhi salam can serve what I want to deliver here. I would like to conclude. Previously I said I'm about to conclude. Now I am concluding. Two questions. Is this concept of ta'aruf a threat to our identity? And do we have to let go, give compromises, give away some of our special elements found in our special identity Do we have to let go some of our permanent principles or values or morals in order to be called as moderate or tolerant or muta'arif? Of course not. But are there any evidence from the Holy Quran? When I said, is ta'aruf or tolerance a threat to one's identity? Now I'm going to quote a verse that is very amazing. Allah the Almighty says in Surah Saba, and it is going to answer both questions. The first question was, is it a threat to our identity? The second was, which is based, as I said, on the first question, do we have to let go some of our values and morals in order to be called tolerant and muta'arif? And this verse, actually there are two verses, answer both questions. Allah the Almighty says, قُلْ مَنْ يَرْزُقُكُم مِّنَ السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضِ قُلِ اللَّهُ وَإِنَّا أَوْ إِيَّاكُمْ لَعَلَى هُدًى أَوْ فِي ضَلَالٍ مُبِينٍ قُلْ لَا تُسْأَلُوا عَمَّا أَجْرَمْنَا قُلْ لَا تُسْأَلُونَ عَمَّا أَجْرَمْنَا وَلَا نُسْأَلُ عَمَّا تَعْمَلُونَ. Have you realized the differences here? First of all, let me at least the literal translation of the two verses. Say, O Muhammad, who provides for you out of the heavens and the sky and the earth? Say, Allah. Surely either we or you are upon right guidance or in manifest error. Who is saying this? Allah the Almighty is teaching whom? The Prophet of Islam, the seal of prophets, to approach the disbelievers, idol worshippers, through saying, either we or you following the guidance or going astray. Does it mean that Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam wasn't certain about what he is calling for? Does it mean that he has doubts about his faith and his message? And that's why he is making his enemies at the same level of him. Either we are going to be, one of us is going to be either guided or misguided. And he is ascribing this to himself. وَإِنَّا أَوْ إِيَّاكُمْ لَعَلَى هُدًى أَوْ فِي ضَلَالٍ مُبِينٍ. Surely either we or you are upon right guidance or in manifest error. The following verse is more amazing. قُلْ لَا تُسْأَلُونَ عَمَّا أَجْرَمْنَا وَلَا نُسْأَلُ عَمَّا تُجْرِمُونَ. No. عَمَّا تَعْمَلُونَ. You are not asked about, you are not going to be questioned about what we have, about the crimes that we have committed. Nor are we going to be questioned about what you have done. So when he was talking about himself, he accepted the fact to ascribe crimes to himself, although he was crimeless, of course, sinless. But this is the way by which he approached his enemies. And it is not something that he invented, although he is the Prophet of Allah the Almighty, but this is something that Allah the Almighty has revealed to him in the Holy Quran. And by the way, all verses that start with the commandment قُل means that what follows is very important. The surahs, the chapters that commence with the word قُل, and we have a few of them. How many surahs start with the word قُل? How many surahs start with the word? How do you know? There are 5. قُلْ أُوحِيَ إِلَيَّ أَنَّهُ اسْتَمَعَ نَفَرٌ مِّنَ الْجِنِّ قُلْ يَا أَيُّهَا الْكَافِرُونَ قُلْ هُوَ اللَّهُ أَحَدٌ قُلْ أَعُوذُ بِرَبِّ الْفَلَقِ قُلْ أَعُوذُ بِرَبِّ النَّاسِ. Right? So there are how many? 5 of them. Of course, there are so many verses in the Holy Quran start with the, or commence with the word قُل. Now, as a general principle, of course, there is another meaning associated with it. But what is common in all of them is that what follows the word قُل is very, very important. And that's why Allah the Almighty wants His Prophet to approach the people and convey the message starting with the word قل. This is not me talking. It is Allah the Divine is talking. That's why he says قل لا تسألون عما أجرمنا ولا نسأل عما تعملون. But as I said, this is out of confidence. This is out of certainty, because ta'aruf or tolerance is a point of strength and richness. We have to remember always this, and it is a sign of confidence and certainty. Those who hesitated, those who are reluctant, cannot engage themselves with others in dialogues, in constructive dialogues, in thinking for the betterment of humanity. But those who have firm identity and confident upon their identity, they do not mind having dialogues and engage with others into constructive dialogues. I'm not talking about debates, I'm talking about dialogues, please. But for the other question, which is, do we have to let go some of our morals and values? And here I do mean it. I'm going to end up. I'm signing out. I'm going to quote another verse. And here I'm giving an example from a woman given in the Quran. We don't know her name, but we know her characters. And I, in another lecture, presented her as a leader, a female leader. This is one of the daughters of Shu'aib alayhi salam. You know the story of Musa and Shu'aib alayhi salam and the daughters. How many daughters are they? 2 daughters. Now I'm concerned with the one to be the wife of Musa alayhi salam. فجاءته إحداهما تمشي على استحياء. Now underline this phrase, تمشي على استحياء. قالت إن أبي يدعوك ليجزيك أجر ما سقيت لنا, and then the verse goes on. Then came one of the 2 women to him, to Moses, walking modestly, and said, my father invites you to compensate you for what you have done for us. This is the only place in the Holy Quran that we find the word haya or istihya. The only place in the Holy Quran. So why it is there? تمشي على استحياء. This is to indicate that even in such, when she is engaged with a stranger, so far she doesn't know. All what she knows about him is that he has helped them in watering their goats, their livestock. This is all what she knows about him. So he's a stranger. Yet Allah the Almighty is showing us that in such circumstances she maintained her values and morals. She didn't let go her morals. And this can be understood in the verse to follow. قالت إحداهما يا أبت استأجره إن خير من استأجرت القوي الأمين. This is when I said she has the spirit of a leader. Now we already know about her morals from the phrase تمشي على استحياء, walking modestly. So anyone to engage with others, this doesn't mean to give compromises. This doesn't mean to let go our morals and values just to be called as tolerant or engaging with others. We have to maintain our values and ethics. This is the best way to introduce others to our morals and values. We have to show them our values and morals and ethics, how we do care for them, yet we maintain our principles and we adhere to this behavior. Second, she said, يا أبت استأجره إن خير من استأجرت القوي الأمين. Oh my father, hire him. Indeed, the one that you are going to hire is Al-Qawi, the strong, Al-Amin, the trustworthy. And the father got the message. It was not a work contract actually. Her suggestion was well understood and received by her father. قال إني أريد أن أنكحك إحدى ابنتي هاتين. This is when I said because she took the initiative. So if we are talking about engagement, please imitate this good example of the daughter of Shu'aib alayhi salam and take the initiative. Thank you very much indeed. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.
And I think we all will learn from it.
example title I hope all of us will use as a reference, inshallah.
جزاك الله خير.
We have time for a few more questions from the room here. 605. Please, Shabab, if you have any questions, kindly raise your hand. You get the microphone.
It's 1 hour and 10 minutes of a real precious wisdom. Yeah, I would really ask myself first, what are the 3 key things I learned, and what are the 3 key actions I will take in all the areas he addressed to me.
We will not have time to all of us to say that.
So that's it. I just want to pass.
No, go ahead.
Okay?
Shukran. Any question? And we do apologize. We are not taking questions from abroad, outside the office here today, on the phone, over the phone. So, a couple of questions here.
Well, I have 2 empty cards to write down the questions.
So we have room for many questions.
Assalamu alaikum, Sheikh. Jazakallah khair, and may Allah reward you and increase your knowledge, inshallah. The topic of DNI is one of these heavyweight topics, and it's dealt a lot with some sensitivity. My question is the definition of the word equality with an example. How can you define equality with an example?
Well, equality is the word the equivalent, the Arabic equivalent to equality is musawa. This is what you are asking about. The equality in the sense of the Quranic use has never been used. The word musawa, although being one of the topics discussed thoroughly in Islamic literature, yet the word, I'm talking about the word itself, has never, it's exactly as the word tasamuh has never been mentioned in the Holy Quran nor in any prophetic tradition, at least an authentic prophetic tradition. Exactly the same with the word equality. What we have in the Quran is justice. And that's why I quoted verses from the Holy Quran talking about justice. Because if we are talking about diversity and differences and being created into nations and tribes, then unless we have this textual evidence to indicate where are the areas of equality, and I already mentioned the unity of origin, the destination that we are heading towards, the dignity from Allah the Almighty, being responsible in this life, doesn't mean that we have equal responsibilities. We complement each other, and this is how life goes in accordance to the Holy Quran. Allah the Almighty states clearly that you have been created so that you will serve each other. Sukhriya means to serve each other. So justice is the technical term used in the Holy Quran, as it is also used in many prophetic traditions. Al-Mizan is used. Allah the Almighty says, وَالسَّمَاءَ رَفَعَهَا وَوَضَعَ الْمِيزَانِ, and the sky, the heavens that He has raised high, and He set forth the scale. Now the scale is an indication in Arabic, not only as a metaphoric use, but even as a literal meaning for justice. That's why أَلَّا تَطْغَوْا فِي الْمِيزَانِ, do not transgress over the scale. And if we examine the contemporary use of the word musawa, it has been, and this is a misfortune, it has been used or confused with the word justice. But they are 2 different things. And why I'm not giving an example for musawa or for equality on some details, all what I have mentioned is the original concept that Allah the Almighty has explained in the Holy Quran, again, the unity or belonging to the same origin. This makes us all equal before Allah the Almighty. And the other principles, when I said the dignity from Allah, the destination that we are heading, being trustees on this earth, so we are equal on these regards, but it doesn't mean, again, that our assignments and responsibilities are equal. Does this meet your concern?
Another question?
Now, I'm sorry if I may add something. When I said that it is found, the word musawa is also found for those who are talking about maqasid al-sharia, the aims of sharia. One of the essential aims is to establish musawa, which means equal opportunities, and they do emphasize the importance of equal opportunities, treating people equally when it comes to judiciary and the judicial system. People must be treated equally. These are some areas that they do highlight when talking about the aims of Sharia. Otherwise, the more comprehensive, more profound word is justice.
Sheikh, any question for you? Yes, please.
Assalamu alaikum, Sheikh. Thank you so much for today. Two questions, please. What do you think about PDO's efforts to embed D&I in the workplace?
Well, I enjoyed what I have here to the extent that I was about to decide to decline to give my lecture. I was really impressed.
Okay, the second question, as the biggest company in Oman, what role can PDO play in spreading D&I tolerance?
Well, it can give a good example to other companies, other leading companies in the country. So I don't think that their role should only be limited to the company itself, but I think they have the potential to set a good example for other workplaces, environments, and other leading companies in the industry or elsewhere for how to engage and implement the idea of differences and inclusion.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Any more questions? Hands up, please. No?
Are you a journalist? That sound questions of journalists.
5 years in journalism before I joined the company.
He's our media relations advisor.
It's very obvious.
As there are no more questions, I think we need to conclude. So I'd like, before that, ask Sheikh Muhammad Saadi to just say a few words as a closing remark.
I think it's very difficult to come after just to express our sincere thanks on behalf of PDO staff, the ones who are actually in the room, the ones who are watching the presentation or the speech on the stations. Just to say thank you very much for a very valuable and very informative speech. It did actually explain and highlighted how deeply rooted D&I or tolerance or all the definition you spoke about in Islam and other religions. I'm sure this will actually help PDO to foster even a stronger drive toward D&I, and hopefully inshallah will play the role that we put on our shoulder now to actually lead the way in Oman inshallah and elsewhere. So thank you very much for coming despite your very busy schedule.